Mambition, mambition, mambition. Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
everybody. We're going to talk over each other there. It's because you do your crazy little happy, eccentric, I would say, intro. Hello, everybody.
Definitely. Because I'm always excited to do this. You know, Mambition, it's a passion project. It's something I love doing. So I feel like every time we're on here, you've got to express the joy.
Yeah, well, anyway, I'm Alex.
And I'm Tiffany. Thanks, guys, for joining us again for this episode. We have a fantastic guest for you. Today, we are joined by Currie OBE. She is a trailblazing leader, changing the game for working mothers worldwide. As the founder of UPFRONT, Lauren's on a bold mission to transform confidence, visibility, and power for 10 million women. A flagship program has already empowered thousands of women across 50 countries, partnering with giants like Nike and the Ministry of Defense. But Lauren doesn't just talk the talk. As a former chairperson of Pregnant Then Screwed and a mother herself, she's been at the forefront of fighting maternity discrimination while raising a 5-year-old son in Stockholm. Named by Elle Magazine as a woman changing the world and honored with an OBE for her services to design and diversity, Lauren believes in turning on the lights in every room she enters. Woohoo! Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you.
Hello.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Now, a good place to start, I think, is the fact that most people, Lauren, when we do that little intro for them, are like sort of aw shucks, a bit embarrassed. And I feel like it would be very on brand that you're just going to own it and feel really good about that.
It's funny. I actually just had a conversation this morning with Sophie Williams, who is an author and a TED speaker, and her podcast is all about success. And the first question she asked me was, how do you feel when somebody's reading out your bio? So I was like extra conscious of it because I just had a conversation about it with Sophie. But I think you're right, Alex. Like I do, I feel proud and excited.
Do you ever? Yeah, but do you ever think about? So obviously, I follow you on LinkedIn, so I follow your post. I love it, and I do just think definitely when the confidence comes to mind, I do think of you. But do you ever look back on a time when you were not that confident, or you kind of see the contrast?
I mean, I have lots of days and times and moments of low confidence all the time now. Always the same as we all do. I think that's one of the myths that we need to bust, is there is this notion of a confident person and a not confident person. I think confidence, it's a skill that you learn, it's a muscle that you build, and it ebbs and flows. I think what I am really good at, and that I think my work holds me accountable to, it's like every bond that I run, every conversation that I have like this is holding me accountable to my own ideas of what I believe about confidence, particularly in relation to being a woman and being a mother. So it's about knowing when you do have those ebbs and your confidence is not, as it inevitably will be all throughout our lives, that it doesn't, that the impact of that knock gets more and more and more manageable. Because you have the strategies and the toolkit and the knowledge and the community to keep that confidence building.
I like that, the idea of seeing confidence as something that can be developed, because I think sometimes people think it's this elusive thing that only a few people have and they must have it all the time, but surely I can't be like that all the time. I'm not really like that. Yeah, so I'd love to know, I mean, what are the small steps that you think people can, or small steps that you think people can take to be more confident? Is it, I don't know, learning to take risks, like just small things that people can do more of to be more of that person?
Well, I'd also love to hear Alex's answer to this question, because she is a bonder and has been through our program. And I think the beauty of the bond is that no matter where you're from, where you work, what your background is, the context you're bringing to the bond, you always have key things that you take away that become those small steps. So I think the first step is what you kind of alluded to, Tiffany, which is really sitting with this idea that confidence is not something you're born with. It's like we really sit with that and think about what that means, and think about what does that mean for the stories that you're telling yourself about the space that you're taking up in the world, about your ambition, about your ideas, about the life that you want to build, about the type of mother that you want to be. Because just that idea in itself, I think, leads to a lot of unraveling and a lot of revealing, landing on insights that will then propel you forward in big leaps. And I think the second thing, which is one of our mantras in the bond, is to apologize less. And it's something that seems quite simplistic on the outside, but we have been programmed from very young to consistently and constantly apologize unnecessarily. And this can take different shapes and stretches in different ways depending on geographic location and cultural groups we belong to. But there is a key pattern of women saying sorry all the time. And it's like, sorry is a really beautiful word. It's a really important word. All of us are mums. Folks listening are mums, and we're spending a lot of time thinking about how do we teach our kids to say sorry? How do we role model saying sorry to our kids? It's like we need to use that word when it's necessary, but instead we are saying sorry for speaking, saying sorry for being in a physical body that takes up space on a bus, saying sorry for needing a seat, saying sorry for being hungry, saying sorry for not hearing somebody, saying sorry for walking past somebody in a store. And that in itself, I think, can be a really interesting experiment that I encourage all of your listeners just to sit with. How many times did you say sorry today?
Yeah. I mean, when you say there that we bump into people and we apologize, I think also they bump into us and we also say, oh, I'm so sorry, even though they were the one that bumped into us. I really enjoyed doing Bond Date. I thought it was a fantastic program. I loved meeting other women from all around the world. And I definitely found that the exercises around examining your language, not starting to say things in a meeting that automatically take power away from your words. So things like, I might have got this wrong, or tell me if I've misunderstood, before you then go into what you're saying. That actually there are so many little things like that we do without thinking, and we do it to almost make saying something a bit difficult more palatable, or speaking up with our contribution. But actually, through that little intro that we do ourselves a disservice of making our words carry less impact. And I really liked getting that. I liked the stuff about body language as well, of people trying to make themselves smaller than they are, of taking up less space. And I've really been trying to put those lessons into practice. I started the bond as quite a confident person, but where, having been off work for 18 months, a difficult pregnancy, my workplace confidence was probably knocked a little bit. And it's really helped me to kind of reclaim some of that. But yes, I'm quite a confident person, but everybody can benefit from doing that work to improve their confidence. And I guess being willing to take up space. And the course, I will let you speak again in a moment, Lauren. But the course that you did about visibility really, really hit home for me. And I have then been much, much more visible online, which is something we need to do.
Yeah, your LinkedIn, like loving your LinkedIn journey. It's been really great to witness. But I think the other thing I think it's important to highlight, because there will be people listening who think, well, I kind of am a confident person. Like, that's not really something that resonates or lands. And I think often that is true and valid. And in those cases, then I think it's about what happens when you look at confidence through a lens of community and collective rather than you as your individual self. So it's like if you feel like you're a person with a strong foundation of confidence, what are you doing to give that to other people? What are you doing to make sure that that foundation transfers to your team, to your community, to your family, to your parents? It's like that's also the confidence work to be done. I think it's about the personal development, of course, 100%, but also the systemic change. And I think that's what makes Upfront different, is that we are, you know, we're in the middle of that Venn diagram. We're kind of in the sweet spot there, because I really do believe that it needs to be both if we want to genuinely, what our mantra says on our website, like build a confidence revolution, where in future generations the conversation, you know, is not about, oh, you know, she was just born with it and that's that.
Okay, so in a way, kind of fueling other people with your confidence and fueling communities and making a change with the confidence that you have.
Yeah, it's like understanding how to build how to activate confidence in others is a skill.
Okay.
And I think it's particularly important for women, because what we are taught and what we are programmed to do is to be threatened by other women who are confident, and to, whether consciously or subconsciously, try and tear down women who seem to be showing up in a confident way, whether that is someone at work to Taylor Swift, Kamala Harris. You know, we see it in every sector and every way. The world does not like nor reward confident women. That's why, you know, I have my tote bag and our phone cases, and may our confidence upset them. It's like the question that we get asked. We've had 11,000 women go through our bond program now, and the question that comes up every single bond: how can I be confident without upsetting anybody?
Oh,
Wow.
that's a shame, isn't it? That's a shame that confidence in men is actually almost like admired. Oh, he's such a confident man. He moves into the room. But when it's a woman, it's almost like, I think that actually links to that. There's a study that's going around at the moment about how women are giving feedback at work.
About their personality.
Yeah, and a lot of it's about your personality. It's interesting, isn't it? For man, it's oh, it's such a confident man. It's very good at his job. But women are like, oh, but you're too direct, you know. So it's interesting how, sadly, the way confidence shows up in men and women are very different. And women are now carrying the burden of the consciousness of how they come across because they're confident.
Yeah, it's like it becomes I think we have this such narrow, fixed idea of what confidence is, that it becomes a tool to perpetuate bias, and it becomes a tool to keep women small. It's like we'll all have our stories of, we've either been told we're too confident or not confident enough.
Yeah.
That is, no matter what woman you meet, she will have a story of either both or one of those buckets. We're constantly told that we're doing confidence wrong. And that is fundamentally why Upfront exists. I don't want that to happen anymore.
And what was your light bulb moment for that? What was the kind of inspiration for Upfront?
I don't know if there was one singular moment. It would be much more catchy if there was.
You can sell that moment.
Yeah, I can tell you a story. I can tell you the story about the day that was born, if you like the day I was like, shit, I need to fix this. So Upfront is my sixth business. I built my first business when I was 23, straight after university. And through that journey, by necessity, but also because I was good at it, you know, I found myself on a lot of stages. You know, it was my job to evangelize, inspire, educate, get clients, get people excited about this. We were one of the first consultancies of our kind in the UK. And so I was often in these rooms and I would be the only woman speaking. I would be always the youngest person in the room. I would be the only person with a regional accent, the only person who didn't go to private school. And I guess back then I was naive. I was fully accepting the story we're told, which is the person that works the hardest gets the job, you know, the myth of meritocracy, the myth of equal opportunity, you know, and this was around 2015. Like, we didn't have vocabulary or language to talk about sexism or anti-racism or intersectionality or equity or equality. Like, that wasn't really a thing that we were talking about then. But I just was constantly pissed off. It's like I was just constantly irritated. Like, why is this happening? Because I'm thinking, okay, I look around my office, look around my team, my friends. I know hundreds of women who are incredible, and none of them are anywhere to be seen. Like, what is that? Why is this? Why is this happening? And so I was at a conference in Bristol. I was the only woman on the lineup, which of course, you know, I would never agree to that now. And people listening might say, well, that would never happen now. It does still happen. I'm sure we're making progress, but it's still dire straits. And I remember I was there with my friend Amy, and we were sitting up the back row, and I remember saying to her, like, I need to say something. I just had this feeling of, like, I need to say something. I can't, why is this happening? And so, you know, I did take a big risk. It could have really upset the organisers. It could have upset people in the audience, but I delivered my keynote, and somehow, I can't remember exactly, I kind of weaved into that story. I said, why am I the only woman up here? Like, why is that? I don't want that to be the case. And I want you to come and talk to me and tell me what you think about that. And then I went and put a post-it note on the mirror in the women's toilets. And I wrote on the post-it note, would you ever like to be on stage? Like, tweet me. Back in the old days when Twitter was
not a cesspool.
Tweet me. And so after the talk, my phone's on fire with all the tweets. There's people queuing up to speak to me. And I listened. I listened to their stories. I listened to their reasons, their fears. And I think that was the day where I was like, okay, wow, this is big. This is a big issue. This is complex. This is intersectional. This is a lot. But one of the things, because obviously, you know, my background is design. I'm trained to solve problems and build things to solve problems. So my designer hat goes into, like, user research mode. And I'm like, okay, so the thing that I keep hearing these people say, the most consistent story, is people saying, people like me don't go on a stage. I would never go on a stage. Too scary, too uncomfortable. It's not a thing that I would do. And so I walked away from that thinking, why is it that in our professional lives, if we want to learn a new skill, there's always a way for us to learn it? We can go on a course, we can shadow somebody, we can go to a conference. Like, there are multiple vehicles to enable that learning. If we want to become public speakers, if we want to get good at being on a stage, the only way you can do that is by being on a stage and speaking. And I'm like, that feels broken to me. Like, why isn't there a way to dip your toe in the water, to try? And so that was where UpFront was born. Like, I was sitting in my flat with my partner and our roommate, and I remember we were having the conversation. I said, well, why, I've got a keynote in a couple of weeks, why don't I just get a big sofa, put it on stage, and I'll send an email out beforehand, and I'll say, look, if you've got stage fright, if the thought of this freaks you out, come and sit on the sofa. You don't need to say anything. You can just be on the sofa on stage with me. I'll look after you. I'll explain to everybody why you're there. that's like a safe way to try. And I wrote up front on a post-it note, stuck it on the front of my notebook, took a photograph, put a post on Facebook, and said, I'm going to try this thing. Like, what do you think? And Matt Desmere, who deserves a shout out because he'd signed me up to keynote at his conference, and I sent him an email a week before, like, can I get a sofa? I want to bring people on stage with me. And he's like, sure. Like, just like, what is this crazy Scottish woman on about? He's like, yeah, I mean, he's great. He's like, yeah, sure, let's do that. Like, he's like, as an organizer, this is a problem. Like, lack of diversity on stages is a problem. Let's try. And we had like 50 people email back saying, telling me their stories, telling me how they felt when they read the words that they could be on stage without speaking. And so we tried it out, and it was a success in every sense of the word, in terms of how it made them feel, what it ignited for the audience, how it could have changed how the people on the couch were thinking about their, because it's not about everybody needs to be a TED speaker and everybody needs to go on a stage, but it is about, if that's something you ever want to do, or it's ever something that you need to do to generate income or to build your profile as part of your job description, I want you to be able to know how to do it well. And that was the very first upfront couch moment. And I had a full-time job. I had another business on the side. I never, for a long time, never thought about it being a business. I remember one point thinking, maybe like Barclays could sponsor the couch. I was trying to think, like, how could this be a thing? My mum made upfront cushion covers, and so we used to post cushions to conferences who were going to have the couch on their stage in different countries. And we would ask the folks who sat on the couch to fill in a survey, and I would have debrief calls with them. And I guess it was through those debrief calls that I really started to understand, like, this is a much broader issue about confidence. And they're all asking me, like, this was so great. Like, what, do you have a book or a podcast or a workshop? And I'm like, no, I don't have any of those things. I'm busy doing my job with my other business. And so when I Googled to find courses and to find learning spaces to send these people, there was just nothing. Like, there was kind of American fake it till you make it business, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, which does have value, and there's aspects of that are valuable, but like, I'm not going there. I'm not sending Alex, you'd sat on my couch, like, I'm not sending you there. Like, that's not where you want to be. And then the other side is like breath and body, and like learn confidence through dance and movement. Again, super valid. But like, Tiffany, are you rocking up to Royal Academy of Dance and Music? Like,
I'm definitely not, because I've been told I'm unteachable. We talked about this another day. I'm unteachable at dancing, so no.
Yeah. And so I just saw a huge opportunity. I just saw a huge gap. I was like, wow, there is literally nothing for women. There's nothing that's acknowledging that also this is intersectional. This is different for Black women, for queer women, for women of colour, for mothers. So yeah, that's where it all began.
Yeah, you touched on motherhood there, which is interesting, obviously, because I suppose kind of confidence can change as you become a mother. I'm interested to know, from your perspective, how do you think motherhood can be leveraged as a leadership strength?
I think motherhood is leadership. Like, I see them as the same thing.
Yeah. No, I get. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And how it can be leveraged is interesting to think about, because we are trying to create leverage in a system that hates mothers.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that out loud, because it can feel We spoke to Anne Welsh, Dr. Anne Welsh, and she was talking about how she'd been researching how transitions is an opportunity for growth. And she was very specific about how motherhood can be a time that women actually can level up, even though it feels as if it's a time when you're discriminated against. It's a time when you can't find flexible work. So I'd love to know from how you've, obviously, I know you have a 5-year-old son, how, if you can kind of look back on your experience, how being a mom has actually empowered you to not do more, but be more effective, or be more kind of better at your business, or maybe less, but do more important things.
Yeah, I think motherhood for many women can be a moment of radicalization. And I think often that is directly linked to privilege, of course.
Okay.
But it can be the first moment in a woman's life where she feels invisible, where she feels ignored, where she feels she's in a space that was not designed with her needs in mind, where she feels her voice is worthless, where her skills and talents are worthless, where she's being judged for being a mother rather than being judged for her character. And as much as that is devastating and has such a deep negative impact on our economy and our society, I think it also can be a moment that feels energy, activism with a small a, hopefulness, determination. I think so much of mothering feels radical. And I think that's the bit that I'm interested in. It's like when you see two women CEO job sharing a large institution, I'm like, fuck yes. Like, what is that? What is that? What is going to be the ripple effect of that in 10 years? Like,
yeah, because that's changing the system as well as changing things for themselves, isn't it? It's being visible as doing things differently and showing how it can work.
Yeah. And also in our parenting, it's like how we raise boys to be good men, how we raise feminist boys, how we raise girls to be very aware of the stories that they're being told. And that's something that I've been spending a lot of time on lately. I've just finished writing my first children's book, which is called The Trick, which is essentially shorthand for the patriarchy. It's like the trick is a way to teach children and grown-ups about the patriarchy. So we're teaching them, you're going to be tricked into thinking that there's rules for boys and rules for girls, which is nonsense. There's no rules for anybody. And this is stemmed from my son, who's 6.5, having long blonde curly hair and constantly being mistaken for a girl, even though we live in a country like Sweden, which has, some of the best parental leave policies in the world, does really well on a lot of gender, it's not perfect, but gender equality stuff is in a good place. Men having long hair is much more common here than it is in the UK, but still, in those moments, that bias.
And I think as well of the negative bias towards anything that's perceived as being feminine as well. So, if a boy is mistaken for being a girl, there's an inference that that's a bad thing as well. And when we met with you before, we talked about building confidence in children. And that's definitely something we wanted to pick up with you today about how you go about approaching that. Tiffany's got an incredibly confident little daughter.
Yeah.
But she's only 2.
Amazing.
And it's how do you protect that confidence, particularly in girls?
So I think the most powerful thing that parents can do when it comes to confidence is to model confidence.
Yeah.
Because children are constantly absorbing how we handle challenges, how we speak about ourselves, how we advocate for things we care about. So I think a really good exercise is when you're having a moment of reckoning with your own confidence, is to share that with them. So for example, it's like, I've got a big presentation at work and I'm feeling really nervous about it. What do you think I should do? Or, it's like, it's bringing them into that dialogue, because it's all about showing them that confidence is not the absence of fear. It's not the absence of doubt. It's not the absence of nerves, but it's doing the thing despite not feeling ready. So it's yes, be confident in front of them, but also take them on the journey that you're on with your confidence. Because I think that's why I really love the trick. Like, we've been talking to Atlas about the trick probably since he was 2 or 3. And now there are days where he'll ask me a question that kind of knocks me for, like, why do you put makeup on before you have a call? Are you being tricked? I'm like, probably, but I also like wearing makeup. It's like, it's bringing them into that complexity. It's like some of it is quite binary. Like, anybody can have any hair of any shape, length, or texture. Like, end of. We know that to be true. Whereas, things of, trying to think of another one. He said to me one day when we were in the supermarket, why do the pictures of women need to be young so people pay attention?
Oh wow, he is wise.
And it's like, I mean, yes, but I'm like, is that particular wisdom, or is it just exposure to, from a really early age, like, this is a thing, it's everywhere. Like, every movie we watch, at the end of the movie, it's like, okay, where did we see the trick? And he's like, well, we watched Jurassic Park recently. It's like, all the people who were flying helicopters were men. You read the Jungle Book, every single character in the Jungle Book is a boy.
Oh yeah.
And then it's the conversations you have around that, the conversations you have with grandparents. I think grandparents is a huge part of this conversation, because, they are from a different worldview, different generations. It's like, as you said, Alex, when a boy seems to be doing something feminine, like wearing pink clothing, like, I can see my dad having a, like, and I'm like, you're sorry.
That's yeah, I think it's hard. I think like you said, our society is just so, especially from children's perspective of innocence and simplicity, they do notice things that even we might not notice because we are being conditioned to not notice these things. And it's quite scary, because I look at my daughter and I think she's so confident, maybe a bit, and like, actually she's very, very confident. She'd walk into a seat, like she'd walk up a slide, and I'm like, even I'm not trying to go down the slide. I'm like, no. But I'm because I think I was very confident as a child. I was told, but then I lost my confidence, and then I gained it now in my 30s and getting older. So I think what I want to do with my daughter is retain her confidence, because I know the world would take her down a couple of notch. So I'm thinking, if I can keep her confidence super high, expecting that life, children in the playground will take it down, then hopefully she won't lose too much of it. And I think, like I said, it's about what we're modeling. Even things like when I'm doing my makeup, looking at myself in the mirror, I'm not going to criticize the way I look in the mirror, because she watches me a lot. So I think it's a sort of things, and I think the more you're conscious of how you're being viewed by your children, the more you're aware of what you're doing and how it's going to impact them. And it can be so subtle, but it's there. I'm interested to know, you mentioned that, because I know you're obviously I think sometimes with being a mother and being super ambitious, sometimes it can feel a bit conflicting. I'm interested to know that, because I know you've also made a couple of personal LinkedIn, and you talk a lot about how work is not everything. How do you then, how do we help women to reframe their ambition without diminishing it?
Like, is this in the context of guilt, like having mum guilt around being ambitious.
Yeah, just like being ambitious, but also being a mom, because it can sometimes feel a bit conflicting. Like you're trying to be a good mom, you're trying to be a good professional. You know, some days it's like, you know, how do you balance that and still not feel bad that some days maybe you pick up the kids late from school, or because it's
Yeah.
a bad balance.
And I think at the core of this issue is the narrative that we're fed of perfection, being the perfect mother, being the perfect wife, being the perfect employee, being the perfect boss. And so when you layer that with this notion of work-life balance, which is also something that we are taught to strive for, I think that becomes a trap that you cannot win. I think true balance is a myth unless you are extremely wealthy. Like, I just don't think balance is a thing. I think there's always trade-offs. I think those trade-offs change at different phases of your life. The way I think about it is, what I always strive for is to be really intentional with what those trade-offs are. And I think mum guilt is a very intentional sexist trap that exists to make women feel inadequate, because there's so much heavy, I think we all absorb very heavy stories about motherhood from really early on in our lives. And we've seen it play out with Kamala Harris's recent run for election, seen it play out with other people like Nicola Sturgeon, where the story is, if you don't have children, there's something wrong with you. You know, if you don't have children, you can't be trusted. And this idea that our usefulness to society is to be a mother. And that is harmful and outdated. But we are just at the very, very, very start, I think, of seeing that and recognizing that. And I know that none of what we're talking about is new in any way. Like, it's been around for decades. And there's many, many people, you know, much well versed in this than I, who are doing PhDs and writing books and doing the research around this. But even then, it's like I still feel like the mainstream conversation is still just scratching the surface. Like, we have so far to go, because the stories that we read, the work that we see from organisations like Pregnant Then Screwed, you know, women are losing their jobs for being pregnant. Women are aborting pregnancies because childcare is so expensive. It's like the infrastructure is failing women colossally. And then you marry that with our inherent desire to be productive and creative and have impact and have ideas and passions and build things and create things. And there's no role models. It's like we didn't grow up with seeing the mothers around us. Well, I didn't grow up seeing the mothers around me being ambitious, striving to build wealth, creating impact. Like, that's not a thing and that's not a thing I see now either. It still feels unusual. And I think that's the bit that needs to shift. It needs to be normal. It needs to be boring. Like, this needs to be like, why would we talk about this? It's so boring and ordinary.
Yeah,
That's
we
the
almost need to make
very
ourselves
positive.
redundant, don't we? We need to have the conversation so we don't have to keep having the conversation.
Yeah.
We spoke to I like what you said there, because what that really touches on is this idea that I suppose just speaking out loud, because I think sometimes we've got to find inspiration then from communities outside of ourselves. I mean, how do you find inspiration?
Oh, I don't know. I think my
Yeah.
answer would change depending on the day of the week or what I'm working on, or I think I am inspired by, I think my main source of inspiration
Mm.
in this phase of my life is the bonds that we build. And so at the end of every bond, we have a graduation party. And in that graduation party, we encourage bonders to speak in front of the group, whether they want to read a journal entry or perform a poem they've written or a piece of writing from somebody else. And in those moments, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of connection. It's it's a very powerful experience. What's interesting, what's inspiring, the bit that always just fills me up so much is no matter, I mean, we've probably done like 25 of these now, and women all over the world, all different types of backgrounds, sectors. And it's easy when you're in that room to think, well, there's just something really special about this group, something really special about the women here. Now, that is true, but what's also true is the same thing happens every single time. Because I'm like, this is what happens when women come together in a space and feel comfortable and brave to be bold. This is what happens. And I think if we can scale that, think of the policies, the businesses, the art, the incredible things that would exist in the world that would make life better for all of us and all of our children, if those women executed on those ideas rather than sitting on them because they think somebody's going to call them a show-off.
You talked a little bit when we met before about tall poppy syndrome, and that you've actually had a tattoo, haven't you, of a tall poppy?
Actually, I've got a full neck on. I was like, what?
You get your tats out.
Yeah, just got your thoughts on that. Just because, you know, when you're talking about people being worried that people might try and chop them down, that's a real fear as well, isn't it? You know,
it's very real, and they will. Like that is very, very, that fear is very real and it's very valid. And all of the data shows us that the more competent and successful a woman appears to be, the less she is liked by all genders. And that is categorical across cultures, domains, sectors. And, you know, I've been on my own journey with this probably over the last 12 months, where I think, you know, when you are a woman building a business for women in this space of progression and empowerment in inverted commas, you know, everybody's behind you. It's like, this is amazing and the world needs this and let's go, until you get to a certain point and then it's like, oh, too much now.
Oh,
okay.
And that line exists for all of us. And I found that line this year where the support turned into something different. And I think it speaks to, you know, how deeply ingrained internalized misogyny and misogynoir is in our cultures. Like, it's really important that we ourselves look at how we are complicit in these norms. And, you know, we've all done it. We've all got the women on Instagram that we've had to unfollow because it's like, why she got that and I don't? You know, it's like that. Where does that come from? It comes from us being told there's only room for so many of us. It's all rooted in fear and scarcity. So I've been really digging into, like, what does it look like to accept what's written on the upfront bag? Our confidence will upset people. What does it look like to accept this is a natural and inevitable cost of leadership, that you will be disliked, that you will be discredited, that you will be critiqued. And as much as that is a tragedy, I think it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity, you know, and I don't have the answers. I'm not sitting here saying I've figured it out in any way, but what I do know is I've spent my whole life trying to, you know, do the things and achieve the things and have the success, but also be liked and be nice and be kind. And also I've held a lot of things back for fear of that negativity. I think particularly at school and university. And so what does it look like to accept that you are a tall poppy? Like that's where I'm at in my journey with it now. It's like I am a tall poppy, and that means people will try and cut me down. And that is the cost of doing this work as a woman. It is a double bind that all women at work find themselves in. And we need to talk about it. You know, we need to know that it's not about me or you or any one of us. It's about these deeply ingrained cultural norms. You know, 90% of the whole population have a negativity bias towards women. Like that's
terrifying, isn't it?
Is wild.
That is scary. And you know what? It's what comes to mind for me is new levels, new devils. And it's almost as if as you become more successful in your career as a woman, it's almost as if you have to start building strategies in yourself to be ready to be attacked. That's what it sounds like. And you then have to, I imagine for you, then turn that cheerleading and that validation inwards. Because it will come a time where you may, for example, I don't know, maybe you'll post something on LinkedIn about you doing well and nobody will say anything. So how then in that moment do you, as someone who's clearly doing well, then learn to celebrate yourself, right?
Yeah, totally. I think it's about treating, it's like the cheerleading and the critique washes off the same way.
Yes.
That'll be something that chimes with you, Tiffany.
Yes.
Tiffany's got a real thing about having that internal peace with, you don't need external validation. You don't need, but equally critique, it shouldn't bother you. But I like what you said as well about the kind of being prepared for it. It's almost a price of success, and it's not about you. And I think if you can hold that, it's not actually about you. This is about a systemic issue that people have with women. Maybe it makes it easier for people to push that away. That actually, you know, it's their problem, not mine. And I have to just keep being me.
Yeah, and you know, I keep connected to the data. It's like that people have studied this. We know the data. The same as the data that exists around motherhood. It's like when you have a baby, mothers are likely to get fired, dads are likely to get promoted. Like this is real and it's everywhere. We need to stay awake to that, because I think awareness is such a big part of it. And as I said, it's also thinking about the role that we play in upholding these cultural norms. It's like for so many years I just hated Taylor Swift. Like, why? If you'd asked me why, I wouldn't have been able to answer you. Just decided that I hated her. And now it's like, well, of course I hated her because I believe the headlines, because she's incredibly beautiful, she's incredibly wealthy, she's incredibly talented. You know, 10 years later, I am a huge Swiftie and love Taylor. But that's just one example from my own life. And there's hundreds more. It's like we absorb these stories every day. And I think in a workplace context, it's particularly challenging. I think that's why the bonds help people the way they do, because it's like being in a space full of women that is genuinely celebratory. Like there is no undertone of like, who does she think she is, or show off, or how dare she, or well, I don't know. Like, and it's not about toxic positivity. Like, we still want to have critique and challenge and feedback, but it has to be rooted in data and facts and real things, not I just don't like that you wear short skirts, you know, or I don't like that you go on stage with your grubby accent or whatever it might be.
Or you're not dancing. I saw a post that you said our confidence freeze wearing the earrings, being the first to get on the dance floor. I was like, yes.
But even that's an example. Like some people didn't like that post.
Wow.
They,
Really?
they were like, didn't like the notion of femininity. And you know, whether that's another conversation, another debate in itself. It's how many and thousands and millions of women think. It is in our vocabulary. It's a very ingrained concept, and it's real. And I think that's okay. That means we can talk about it. We should talk about it. And it wasn't until somebody actually said to me, which I think I wrote in the post, like, wow, you're really showing me that I can still be feminine. I was thinking, what? Like, is that, I mean, that's never something I've thought about. It's not been intentional. It's not something that I've struggled with or had feedback on. And it was just so interesting to me that that was the bit that they were really picking up on. And it's like, wow, it's just so insidious.
But then maybe confidence in women is I know obviously I'm conscious of the time, but I think maybe confidence in women is so widely interpreted that you can't win anyway. Do you see what I mean? Because you're dancing on the table, oh, she's too confident, wearing earrings, or red lipstick. But a man is just confident for the sake of he's confident. No one's going to say that man is too confident, he speaks too loudly, he interjects in meeting. But a woman is so widely kind of interpreted and assuming that you can't win. So with that in mind, that's actually a bulletproof strategy that we can use to say, look, so I better just carry on as I am.
Yeah, I mean, you just nailed it in a sentence. It's like you can't win, so do what you want.
Sadly,
they're going to critique you anyway.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't win, so do what you want.
I like that. That'll have to be the title of the
I think so.
Yeah.
Love that.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Where can people find you?
So I write every day on LinkedIn. Would love you to connect there. I'm also on Instagram, and you can find Upfront at weareupfront.com, Upfront Global on Instagram. I would really love to hear from your listeners, hear what you took away from the call, any questions. Yeah, I think these conversations are so important, and thank you so much for having me.
It's been great chatting with you. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.